And I've actually participated in one of the drives, and I want to say it was at Walmart though, the one that I participated in. Yeah, and I used to be an ambassador for the chamber.
Awesome, awesome. And I just started recording it, so real quick, I'll just point out.
Lindsay, Jenny, Maria, Amy.
And so you're on camera, so we're like, we forgot who Amy is. Okay. So now, thank you all for joining us. We may have other people join us in person or virtually. I'm Paul Farmer. I'm the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce and the star of this video that I'm going to show you right now. So we did a professional video of the event a couple years ago. It's about 2 minutes long, and I thought we would just show you that for those of you who have not been a part of this. This video is on the SalinasChamber.com website. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and then hopefully this works out well. All right, now people online, Krishna, can you see this this thing over here, the children's shopping tour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna make it take my whole screen, and I will start the video.
We just can't hear it.
All right, hold on. I'll try to move this other way. Do I have to? They can't hear it?
No.
Hold on. Shay is our technical support. So I have these little speakers set up.
I wasn't hired for IT, but here we are. I'm just gonna stop it real quick.
All right.
So we'll just share the sound.
Oh, well,
And
look at
there we
that.
go.
Look at you. All right. So Krishna, you can see the screen again?
Yes.
And let's see if you can hear it.
If you are interested
Hear it
in
now?
helping in some way, you can donate money. Money's always great. You can
Oh,
also come and
we'll start it over.
my name is Paul Farmer. The Children's Shopping Tour has been a Salinas tradition for over 70 years. The Chamber of Commerce's foundation has taken over the event. We raise over $50,000 each year to take hundreds of kids shopping for school clothes. It's a very important event in Salinas. If you are interested in helping in some way, you can donate money. Money's always great. You can also come and take a child out shopping for school clothes. The important thing about this event is it touches the life of a child in ways that you can't imagine. Sometimes children feel so connected to this, the memory lasts for a lifetime. Sometimes they come back and are volunteers. Sometimes they donate money. But the value to a child to have somebody come and take them to buy new clothes that they need cannot be understated. It's super important.
Pues es muy difícil porque no tengo trabajo y no, tal vez no pueda tener un regalo para mis niñas. Y, gracias porque hicieron a mi niña feliz por un día, porque vino de compras. No sé, agradecerles.
The Chamber wants to thank all of the volunteers who come out to help with this event. We couldn't do it without you. We couldn't do it without the people who donate money every year. So the Children's Shopping Tour is a strong, important event that helps make Salinas what it is. So again, on behalf of the Chamber, we want to thank everybody for coming out.
That's the finish line there. This is when I'll describe the logistics once the video completes a bit here. All right. All right, that's where you're supposed to be inspired and say, sign me up, I want to do that. Shedding tears inside. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the event is like, the history of it, what the logistics look like. Lindsay helped me put together a description of the different volunteer roles. So we'll pass that out and we'll talk about different ways that people can volunteer for the event. And then we'll open it up to questions. So we will also answer the question of how do you do this event during a pandemic? Paul. So what about this? What about that? You know, so we'll answer all of that. So here's the quick history of the event. The Salinas JCs was the junior chamber, and it was people who wanted to develop themselves by helping the community. And that organization was around for about 70 years. Rodney Meeks was the president of it once upon a time, Lino Belli, a lot of our members of the Downtown Salinas Rotary. I was the president of it in 2008 and was also the president of the state organization in 2010. So the JCs was around for a long time. They closed up a couple years ago. And their flagship event, they used to do a number of different community events, including a haunted house. They used to do something called the All-Star Football Game, where they would have a bunch of kids from different schools would all get together and play one big game. But their biggest event was always the Children's Shopping Tour. And it started over 60 years ago. When they first started doing it, they would go knock on doors and to get people to donate money. And then they would have to go pick up the children. I mean, they did this before we had Northridge Mall. But you know, like life was different then. But so it has a really long history. Now, over the years, it changed a bit. They started doing it at Northridge Mall, and the amount of money it started getting bigger and bigger, and getting more donations and more volunteers and more children affected by it. In recent years, we don't have to go knock on people's doors to get money. We don't have to go pick up the kids and drop them off and do all that stuff. So I'll talk about what the Children's Shopping Tour looks like in a normal year. And then I'll also talk about what Shay and Lindsay and I largely put together ourselves in about 3 weeks last year to do a children's shopping tour, some semblance of it during a pandemic. So we did do that last year. Because we got a bunch of money came in. And so we're like, these kids need it now more than ever. So we made it happen. So I'll talk about that in a moment. But for now, let me talk about what the event actually looks like. So the JCs would raise money throughout the year by doing different things. A lot of times it was at the California Rodeo. They were the bartenders for many years at the Bull Crossing. And we used to make a lot of money from that, like $11,000, $12,000 in 4 days. Because we would have like up to 15 bartenders and whatnot. But as the JCs, as the group got smaller, they didn't have enough people to do it. And it was hard work. They always also had a beer booth at the Salinas Valley Fair for a while. And then they would do other things throughout the year to try to raise money. The goal was $50,000 to be able to take 400 children shopping for school clothes. That's if you do the math there, that's $125 per kid. That's a goal. Yeah, so we've adjusted a little bit. So I'll talk to you about the finances, about what it looks like now. The nice thing about this event is you can have this event kind of regardless of how much money you raise, because what you do is you invite a certain number of kids, but you don't tell them how much money, because you're still raising money as you get closer to the event. And so you can adjust how much money you give per kid, give them more, give them less, based on how your fundraising goes. But at a certain point, you have to invite the kids. And so then you've locked that part in. And so I'll talk about the logistics of when we do that. And also something that we learned last year that Lindsay and Shay and I found really simplified things a lot, and which I expect for us to do moving forward as far as inviting the kids. So I'll talk about that process. What? I'll talk about that process. So anyway, raising funds throughout the year, and then they would have a committee put together, and we'll talk about those committee roles, but some of them would work with the volunteers, some would work with the fundraising, some would work with the logistics of the event itself. There's lots of things like getting gift cards to be able to give to volunteers so that they could, we would give the gift card to the volunteer, they would take the child and walk around and go shopping. Some of those things may seem like they're simple, but as Krishna will tell you, she will just nod her head yes. Getting the gift cards is not easy, right, Krishna? Every year we have a different problem with it. So, but anyway, so the committee would start its work about now, 4 months before the event, something like that. Most important thing at this point is to just kind of pull people in and say, yeah, I want to help with this. Yeah, I want to help with that. The event has always been the second Saturday in December, which this year is December 11th. So here we are in August. We've got August, September, October, November, December. So we're a little over 4 months before the event. So we should be in pretty good shape. Well, there you go. Look how that worked out. So our purpose tonight was just to get kind of a core of volunteers to understand what the event looks like and just get things going. And then we'll probably have monthly meetings. I mentioned that Amy agreed to chair it, not really knowing what she was getting into. And I said, don't worry, Amy, we'll be here to help support. So what we'll probably do is monthly meetings from now up until probably the month before the event. And again, we'll talk in more detail about the volunteer roles and identifying people, a number of whom want to participate, but they weren't able to come tonight. So we're recording the video. Hi, all you people who couldn't be here tonight. We still see you. Okay, so back to the committee would start about now, and people would have their different roles they would work on, and then they would get together, usually for a 1-hour meeting, and just check in with people who are handling different parts of the event. And then as it leads up to the event, the better organized we are ahead of time, for any of you who've run events know, the less crazy it is as you get to the event. It is a complex event to take hundreds of people shopping. And you could see a little bit in that video. We typically do this at Northridge Mall. They have a place in the back of the mall called the community room. And the community room, we would have children lined up outside, and we tell them like 7 a.m., but they're there at 6 a.m. or even earlier. But we'll have the kids lined up on one side and the volunteers lined up on the other side. And then they meet and come into that room. And again, if you watch the video again, I won't play it again, but if you watch the video, you'll see different shots of the kids waiting outside and the kids inside. We put them in like these little, like a corral of lines, like at Disneyland. And so the kids go through on that side, and we're verifying that they're the kids who were invited. We typically put wristbands on them that have triplicate numbers. One goes on the adult or person who dropped off the child. The other goes on the child. The other, again, all matching numbers, different colors. The other goes on the volunteer. The volunteer, for security purposes, they leave their driver's license. We take a photo of the volunteer with the child and the number, so that we make sure we know who went with each kid, and security purposes. And then we have one of the volunteers, as they get through that processing area, we give them a gift certificate, usually a card, and the volunteer has that card, and then they go and take the kids shopping. We always work out discounts with a number of stores within the mall. And well, I won't show it to you right now, but we've got kind of a discount card, and we've got people informing the volunteers while they're waiting in line and snaking through the volunteer line. We explain to them when they're shopping, they cannot buy toys for the children. This is just for buying school clothes. And they'll have a form that says what size does the kid need, a form that's in English and in Spanish, that the parents have filled out ahead of time. And so we kind of inform the volunteers a little bit of the rules and stuff like that before we pair them up with the child and then send them off. Depending on the number of volunteers that we have and the number of kids, we have a volunteer, oftentimes me, who looks and says, okay, we've got 200 kids and 100 volunteers. So then we start, each volunteer may take out 2 kids. And if we don't have enough volunteers, maybe as many as 3. But we try to judge it so that ideally they only have to take 1 kid or 2. But so the volunteers are typically over 18, but that's a good question, because a lot of times we get kids from high school doing community service hours, so they can participate. There's certain roles. We won't send a 17-year-old kid out with a gift card with a child, but we do have a place at the end of the children's shopping tour that we call the kiddie corral. And it's where the kids end up at the end. And we have volunteers cut off the tags of any of the merchandise that they bought, so that the parents can't return it later and get the money back. The idea is these are clothes for the kids, so they can't return them. So cutting off the tags, helping watch the kids at the kiddie corral. There are different roles that high school kids can do for community service hours.
Requiring all of these students to have community service hours in order to graduate, and they have to have 60 right? That hasn't changed. We have so many seniors, not just high school kids, I'm talking seniors. These are 17 to 18-year-old kids who are in desperate need of community service hours because they half of their sophomore year and entire junior year, they couldn't get any community service or very little because it had to be like approved and it was so hard. And so anyhow, we have all these seniors now, specifically every high school that needs.
Okay, good. So keep in mind that most of the work is done, it's on that day, but we also have something that the high school kids could help with ahead of time, which is we have the stanchions and the rope for the lines for the kids. We set that up the night before. So we usually meet there at this community room, and we're kind of getting into a lot of details. We don't have to go into every logistical detail right now, but they could help with the setup the day before. So, and we usually have like food for the kids, like we'll get donated breakfast burritos or egg McMuffins or something like that. So we can talk about other things like that. So, but as far as the event itself, so we've got the processing area with the volunteers. Spanish speakers are bailen doble because, you know, a lot of the kids may not speak English as well, or the parents or the people dropping them off. So it's nice to have bilingual people who can speak Spanish as well. So that's basically like the heart of the program as we get started on the day of, and then the volunteers go throughout the store. There are typically, you know, out of the 150 stores in the mall, there are really only 4 or 5 that they really go to because the kids need shoes. And those are typically the stores that we have negotiated an extra discount for the children's shopping tour. They tend to be JCPenney. They're maybe Macy's, depends on the discounts and whatnot. And we could show you later. Well, it used to be Payless Shoe Source, but I think they closed. But there's certain stores that, yeah, go ahead, Krishna.
Old Navy will give t-shirts, sell them for like $2-3. Old Navy's one of the stores that has always supported us in discounts.
That's a good point. Thank you for that. So that's something else that we have for a volunteer to go talk to the managers of the stores. What's easy for me is to say, here's the flyer from before. Can you honor this discount again this time? And so anyway, so that's what we do. It usually takes them about, 2 hours to go shopping. And then the volunteers are instructed to meet at the Kitty Corral, which is outside of Sears on the inside of the mall. And that's where they cut off the tags. The volunteer says goodbye to the kid, get back to us. The parents are waiting there to pick up their kids. So, and that's basically it. So on the day of the event, we have some volunteers start as early as 7 a.m. We try to have everything be done by noon, but there's always a few stragglers, people that are lost, people that started late, or there's always some people, even though we ask them not to go buy food for the kids and stuff like that, some of the volunteers do that. And so we end up going and sweeping the food court and finding where are these people. So we realistically finish by 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And then a lot of times we'll go have like a late lunch for volunteers or something like that. Yeah, so the mall does, oftentimes we'll open it early for us, and the stores, and that's a good point. For like Old Navy and the other stores, they'll open early for us as well sometimes. Or they also may have dedicated registers for us. So, all right. So since I've been talking a lot, I'm going to ask Lindsay to talk a bit about what we did last year in the pandemic. So,
So as Paul mentioned, last year, we did get some generous donations in that kind of final moments post our Legacy of Leadership Gala. And so we decided with about 4 weeks notice to have this event, and we partnered with the Housing Authority and Starla Warren to pick out about 125, 150 participants. So we had about a little less than half the budget of what we normally have. So we served, little less than half the people. And because we were in a pandemic, we selected one store, that was JCPenney, to be kind of the place that it happened. And of course, we did not involve the same number of volunteers and matched people with complete strangers during a pandemic. So parents were required, or caregivers of some sort were required to come with the children. They came in 2 waves. So they were notified that they were selected, they were told where to go, they were told when and what time. And when they arrived, they came through a check-in line. Shay and I checked them in with some volunteers. They were given a gift card to JCPenney directly, so like not to Visa. And then they went out, they went shopping for about an hour and a half each round, went to the checkout, checked out, got all their tags taken off, receipts taken, and we're good to go. They obviously remained masked the whole time. We tried to get some social distancing and it was really successful.
Okay, thank you for that, Lindsay. So Krishna could tell you as well, the last year that we did a normal children's shopping tour, a lot of times we make special accommodations for kids with special needs. If we have them all the day of the event, sometimes, you know, you can't put a volunteer with a kid with autism or if they need special needs. So what we did when Krishna was the chair a couple years ago, Krishna, do you just want to explain what you did with the special needs kids?
Yeah, we worked with Walmart and we had a special date. It was like a week or maybe a month before. And we only requested about 30, I think it was 30 to 35 kids. And we sent out an e-blast saying, you know, if you're comfortable with volunteering with a special needs child, please come register for this children's shop. It was like a whole nother children's shopping door, but at Walmart only because it's easier to navigate in one store. And we had a good turnout. Maybe only one child did not show up, but the parents were very happy that we included the special needs kids because the year before we couldn't do that.
They did, so there were the special needs kids. All right, and Marlene dropped off, but she's rejoining. Hi, Marlene, welcome back. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about lessons learned, and then our only objective tonight really was to get the ball rolling and have people familiar with things, and then I can meet subsequently with Amy and talk a little bit more details. But I want to talk a little bit about lessons learned and how things normally go. So no problem, Marlene. So one of the things that takes a lot of time, and I would like for us to do this differently this year. One of the things that takes a lot of time is the selection of the students who participate. We inevitably end up getting people calling the chamber saying, hey, I've got my kid, how do I get my kid to sign up? And we say, our typical response is, we don't select them, the schools do. So what we do is we have a volunteer named Yvette who has worked with this event for many, many years. She sends letters out to the schools many months ahead of time and tells them, okay, we'd like you to have your school teachers choose 2 kids per classroom or who are the neediest kids, because the school teachers, you know, they see the kids day in, day out. They know who has this, who needs new clothes and stuff. So she does that process, and then she has to keep track of all of the local schools, all of the names of the kids, what grades they're in, what clothes they need, make sure we get the forms back from them. She prints out little name tags for the kids. Then when they show up the day of, the name tag is stapled to the form, the permission form, and the other form that says what their sizes are. So Yvette is a superhuman who handles all of that stuff. And in the week or 2 before the event, volunteers drive out to the schools and deliver the packets with the name badges and for the kids who are participating. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, a lot of back and forth and questions and substitutions and this, that, and the other thing. One of the things we did last year that simplified that entire thing was we didn't do all that. We put this event on in 3 weeks. And what we did was we looked to a board member of the chamber who runs the Housing Authority Development Corporation for Monterey County. And they have a lot of children who are already income qualified because they live in Section 8 housing. So we told them, we need 150 kids in this area who are school age. And we set the criteria, we let them choose the kids. Again, if they live in Section 8 housing, they're already income qualified. So it made it very easy for us. They handled that list. We wrote a letter inviting the parents, and then the Housing Authority gave them that letter and then also put it like under their doors for them. So that really facilitated a lot. I think it makes sense for us to do that again this year. Amy, we can talk about that, but that's one thing that we learned.
I do want to know age was elementary school age, so roughly 5 to 12 years old.
Thank you. There were some other things that we've discussed a lot, and we don't need to resolve this now, but Lindsay and Shay and I have discussed this. One of the things that we did last year was we let the parents take the kids shopping. When you have a volunteer take the kids shopping, it adds there's some good things and some bad things. It adds the need for security to make sure that, a parent is entrusting their child with people they don't know. And that's why we take the pictures of them and take their driver's license, and we don't, throw out the call for volunteers out broadly. We work with selected groups so that you hope, we have good people who want to participate. It's a discussion for us to have whether it makes sense to have the parents do it, because it also takes away from the experience for the child. Like if they're going with someone special who's dedicating their time just to them, and then there's other issues where if the parent may want to, influence buy clothes for a kid who is older, who wasn't chosen there. So some of the people who have participated in this for many years say, okay, I understand having the housing authority help with selection of the children, but I think we should keep having the volunteers and not have the parents do it. So we can hammer that stuff out later. But again, Lindsay and Shay and I talked about what we could learn to make it easier. The other thing, that's okay. The other thing is about the special needs kids. A couple of years ago, when Kimberly Craig, who's now the mayor of Salinas, and I took over this event when the JCs weren't doing it, and we only had a couple of months to raise the money, take over the whole event. Now we volunteered and we were both presidents of the JCs, so we know how the event goes, but we had to do everything really quickly. So that first year we didn't invite any kids with special needs because it adds to the complexity and we just didn't have time to do it. But then the following year in 2019, I said, well, I think it's not fair, kids who have special needs, and I have a nephew who is deaf as well. And I'm like, well, it would be nice if we could accommodate them. So that's why when Krishna did it, we did it on a separate day. And Krishna, we did it on a Friday, I think, right? The special needs kid. Yeah, so we tried to accommodate them. We will determine, I think it's easier if we just let the determination of who comes be up to the housing authority, and we just have them tell us if any of the kids have special needs, and then we can handle them at the event. Maybe have some volunteers will help, because the special needs will generally have their school teacher or a caregiver will take them out. So we can cover all of those details a little bit later, but I wanted to give you an idea of some of the questions that come up that we try to handle ahead of time. So let me go to where we are now then. In some of the advantages of the Salinas Valley Chamber Foundation leading this event now. We're pretty good at raising money. And so we have already received $10,000 from the Hardin Foundation. We've also received a $10,000 commitment from Alco Water, which is a good friend of mine. I tapped them on the shoulder before, and they've done that before. So we'll call them presenting sponsors. We've also received $2,000 from PG&E. Last year, we ended up receiving $6,000 from Cal Water Service. So one of the volunteer positions, as we segue into that in a moment, will be going out to different foundations that have big dollars to give. Because if you can raise $10,000, it makes a big difference in hitting the goal. The goal for the year is $55,000. And if we don't hit it, it's okay. We could give less money, or if we do it in time, we can invite fewer children. We'll still have the event. We just have to adjust things based on how much money we give. But the $55,000, the reality is that the chamber has staff that gets paid. And so we've been having the children's shopping tour. We raised the goal to $55,000, and we said 10% of that, $5,000, would go to help cover the staff costs for the chamber that help make this a professional event, and $50,000 would go directly to the kids and shopping for them. So where we are at this point is we've got $12,000 already received, $10,000 committed, from Alco Water, so we're over 22,000. We have carryover from the last few years of about 8,000, so we could use that if we needed to. So if you add all those together, we're at about 30,000, and we haven't really started the fundraising yet. So again, if we bring in some of those big dollars, great. Other ways that we can raise funds, we have a GoFundMe campaign through the chamber that we have not started promoting yet, but as we get closer to the event, we will. The chamber can also reach out to our members who tend to give $1,000, $2,500, like bigger amounts. We have an event called the Legacy of Leadership, where we've done something called a Fund a Need, and we ask people if they'll donate. First did that a couple years ago. Krishna will tell you we raised about $8,000 that night. So we've got a few different things. So helping with fundraising, both like asking money from bigger companies and from doing creative things to raise money. Some of the things that JC's used to do, we had someone who owned a gym and he did push-ups for charity and got people to sponsor based on how many push-ups you did in a minute or something like that. We had another guy who he also owns a gym, Ray Felix, if you know him. He said he was going to cut his hair however people wanted, like they would have to vote with their dollars. So if you gave $100 and you voted for a salamander, which is the one that ended up winning. Oh, here comes Natalia. Then he ended up like dyeing his hair green and it was cut in the shape of a salamander. Well, he raised like, I think $3,000 or something like that, just from, having a creative way to raise money. And there's other things that we could do, pizza night or different things like that. So, okay, so that's kind of where we are. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Krishna.
I'm wondering with the new COVID risk, variant and all that, what kind of children's shopping tour are you planning to have this year? Like, are you thinking about having the regular, big, huge one? Are you thinking about going small again, like last year?
Yeah. So thanks for the question. An important question, right? We thought we were going in the right direction with COVID and now we have the Delta variant. So we need to have a backup plan. So what could the backup plan be for COVID? So one of the things we could do, and this is just brainstorming, Krishna, because, we can have these discussions in subsequent meetings. What we did with JCPenney, we didn't do it on a Saturday because the mall is crazy on Saturday. What we did with them was they opened earlier on a Friday and it was just us in the store for the first 2 or 3 hours. It's possible, Krishna, that we could emulate what we did last year and spread it over a couple of days. And if we kept it at one store, there's advantages and disadvantages. But that's one thing we could do is have smaller events and have people be masked. That's what we did last year. Again, if we raised a lot of money and we want to serve as many kids, then we'd probably need to split it into a couple different days. But that's one thing we could do. And as Lindsay talked about, I think we did that pretty successfully last year. So I think what we need to do at this point, Krishna, what we're planning on is let's raise the money. Let's plan for the event in person, but let's have a backup plan in case we're not able to do it that way.
And I want to clarify, is in person. But yes, as of now, the plan is normal times, normal amount of kids, the whole Northridge Mall, or at least 5 or 6 shops. Obviously, contingency plans in place, depending on what happens over the next 2.5 months.
Yeah, but if you look at the things that need to happen right now, we need to kick it off and we need to work on grant proposals and try to bring in the money so that we can, have money to spend for the kids. And then we can start the discussions with the housing authority about eligibility of which kids. But we don't have to send out letters until we get much closer to the date of the event. And those letters would have the date on when we want to do stuff. So, I mean, those could happen 4 weeks before the event or even sooner if they had to. Or later than that, if they had to. Other questions about the event itself? Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Natalia. Yeah, so I would say in a normal year, the question is how many volunteers do we anticipate needing? It's generally the number of volunteers is usually little less than the number of kids. So let's say if we had 400 kids, I would say 250 volunteers, 300 volunteers, because you take, if you have a lot of volunteers, and sometimes we've had more volunteers than kids. Sometimes we've had to like turn away the volunteers who came out because we didn't have enough kids. And it's all about the flow of how they come in and whatnot. But ideally, you have each volunteer chaperone, which is what we call the people who take the kids shopping, with 1 or 2 kids. And again, it's an imperfect science. We can talk about how we have people register ahead of time. There's a volunteer coordinator. We encourage them to go through the website and say what role they want to do. And there's a whole volunteer management piece of it. So. And Shay is saying that we have lists of past volunteers that we can reach out to ahead of time. And so we're not starting from scratch, even though we didn't do a regular event last year. Okay, so any other questions, Krishna?
I just want to say, you say there's volunteer chaperones that take the kids if we're doing it that way, but then we need a ton of other volunteers to help. Like that's where the high school kids can come in to help us in the morning and then to help us at checkout.
So there's the setup of stuff, which doesn't take that long, but you know, more people makes it easier. There's the processing of the kids as they come through and the taking the pictures and all of that stuff. There's the processing when they're done with you know, cutting the tags off and then entertaining the kids if they're sitting there waiting for mom and dad. So to Christian's point, there are a lot of different volunteer roles. And also there's kind of a core committee that works on the logistics ahead of time, and where we'll start making decisions about, you know, whether we want to have little goodie bags for the kids or stuff like that. Like a lot of years they do things like that. I often think that it's, thanks, Natalia. Do you want to, I see your comment. Natalia, do you just want to speak? Let's see if she can unmute herself. Give her 5 seconds. So Natalia says in the past 4 years, we have not turned away chaperones. We've needed chaperones in the end. And she's had to take, okay, no problem. She's had to take up to 4 kids. So yeah. All right. Thanks for your comment, Natalia.
Necessarily need separate families. So sometimes you're paired with 2 or 3 kids, but they're brothers and sisters. So one volunteer, you're good. And they honestly know each other, which makes it easier.
All right, so we'll segue into the last part of the meeting here. So we like to have the meeting done within an hour. It's 6:13, so I think we're doing fine on time. So let's talk about, and those of you who are, we have this form. I think I emailed it to everybody who's on here. I might not have gotten Natalia, but can you pass that out? So we'll go through the different groups that people can volunteer for on the committee. Thanks. So I'll just read them. You don't have to sign up for anything tonight, but if you'd like to, then just tell us and we'll put your name down on the core committee. So the first group is donations. 2 to 3 volunteers help run our fundraising efforts through social media, our GoFundMe campaign, Fund a Need at the Chamber's Legacy of Leadership event, which is in October. And maybe asking people in person, like oftentimes business owners and whatnot. So, so that's donations. The next one is sponsorships. So Lindsay, do you want to clarify the difference between donations and sponsorships?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So a donation is something that usually people will give. Our chamber foundation runs this event, and that is a 501c3. So charitable donations apply here, and they would get a receipt in return for their tax write-off purposes, but they don't necessarily get anything in return for their business, and they may not even be a business owner. So that's a person to the organization. Money that you're often going to see in smaller amounts. Sponsorships are like Paul was saying, we have 2 presenting sponsors, I believe both at the $10,000 level roughly. But sponsorships do exist at the $1,000, $2,500, $5,000 level. and businesses sponsor events in exchange for sponsorship benefits for their business. So that would be.
So donations, little dollars, sponsorship, big dollars. That's how I interpret that. And speaking about other big dollars, grants. So we have probably at least 10 different organizations that give grants locally, but you have to ask for money. The Community Foundation of Monterey County, there's the Pebble Beach Company, which the outgoing CEO really liked charitable causes. There's the Salinas Valley Memorial Hospital. There's all these different organizations, but in order to get their money, you have to apply for it. And so we've got a list that would be for somebody who wants to gain experience doing that and can kind of work behind the scenes, filling out that information. And our chamber staff could support them with that. We've done it in the past, so we have a number of grant applications. But this is an area that, boy, if we can bring in the grant dollars, then you don't have to worry about the donations so much because we'll bring in a lot of money through grants. So we're looking for one person who would like to help with that. With marketing, we've got 2 people listed for that. So help us get out the word about the event to recruit donors, but also volunteers. The chamber has a standard press release, but we can help distribute that out to local news outlets. Our chair of the board this year is the general manager for KION Television. But if there's people who like to work in marketing, then they can help run that stuff and again have support from the chamber. This also marketing could extend also to our website and what content is on there. If you look at it now, it just has that video that we showed you at the beginning of the meeting. And but there could be other things that go there as well. There could also be I don't believe we have a Facebook page. Natalia or Krishna, do you remember? Do we have we do have a Facebook page? Okay, I just haven't looked at it. For the event. Have you looked at the Facebook page for the event? Oh, okay. Okay, so apparently I just forgot. So we have a Facebook page, but pushing it out and getting people to share it. So that would be a marketing role for a volunteer. Volunteer coordinator. We would like one person as we get closer to the event who says, okay, we've planned on this many kids. We're estimating this many volunteers. Here are the different roles we need. And so on the day of the event, well, beforehand, they've told people, okay, come at this time. Here's what your role is going to be. Report here on the day of. And they're just managing the volunteers for the day of the event. So we'd like to have one person to help with that.
You should probably have more than one person for that job.
Well, one person ahead of time to kind of figure it out. But if we end up having more than one, that's cool. Logistics, assist in the smooth operation of this event with hundreds of people involved. So logistics could include coordinating the partnerships on the discounts with people at Northridge Mall. There's certain things that we need to do with the mall to make sure we have permission with them and fill out their forms and stuff like that. I've done it in the past, but it's a good learning experience for somebody who wants to help with different things like that. And then logistics also is going to cover the check-in and check-out process. And I'm trying to stay relatively high level in this meeting, but we can talk more with other people like Krishna or myself on how we've handled the logistics of processing people. We already have a lot of these forms already done. So every year we just revisit them and make sure they're good. But we have to make sure that we have, printed forms of whatever we need. Like all of the logistical things are thought of before we get to the day of the event. And then that we bring over the night before all the stuff that we need. The gift cards is a big one. Because sometimes to get those gift cards that you can use anywhere, they charge you a percentage to get it. Once upon a time, we used to get them from the mall, but then Northridge Mall no longer sells a gift certificate that only works in the mall. So the things like that would fall under logistics.
To Krishna's point, recognize that yes, volunteer coordination is a big role. Each staff member additionally will oversee certain parts of this, like not oversee, but assist and be the on-staff person for that particular item and support the people who are in those particular roles.
Thank you, Lindsay. And in the chat, I see that I'm using the voice of Natalia here, that she also says taking so many kids that we're talking about takes away from the one-on-one time that the kids have. And it's hard to manage if you have too many kids. So we can also decide as we get closer to the event, how many kids we have, how many dollars we give each one, because to Natalia's point, it can be a madhouse if it's not really well organized. I will tell you, I think under Krishna's year, it was Krishna's first year doing it, and she survived with her sanity intact, and the event went really well.
I had a lot of gray hairs, but I think I did a damn good job.
More that we have people who understand the event and have had experience with it, and that we start a bit earlier with things, the easier it'll be. And then also looking for opportunities to streamline certain things like the selection of the children and whatnot. So. Okay, so with all that said, I will just ask if anybody who's on the call now, here's what your commitment would be. If you say, yes, I want to be in the committee and I'd like to work on this. All we'll do right now is we'll take notes of that. I'll keep track of, or chamber staff will keep track of your emails. We'll share them with Amy, who will be the event chair. What I expect is for now, you'll have probably a few hours of work per month leading up to the event. Not a ton right now, depending on which role you choose. There will be, I expect to have a once a month, 1 hour meeting like this one, where we just say, okay, here's what we needed to get done, and have people check in with where they are, problems they're having, areas that they need help, stuff like that.
Additionally, I would suspect, I'm involved in so many events and meeting only once a month and knowing the events in 4 months makes me nervous, that your subcommittee, so your grants committee, your marketing committee would also meet once a month.
Well,
Staff person would oversee.
that's Lindsay. I tend to be Mr. Quick and Dirty, get it done. And I don't think you need to have a committee to get, the work doesn't get done in a committee. But what happens is if you, or subcommittee, I'm not a fan of having a committee of a subcommittee of all this stuff. I'm a fan of having a good project manager to make sure stuff is getting done and whatnot. But anyway, I'm just trying to give people an idea of what I think things look like. So I would say, if you say, I'd like to work on donations or sponsorships or things like that, I plan on, 3 or 4 hours a month from here for the next 4 months, and then 1 hour for this meeting. And as we get closer to the event, depending on where we are, there may be a bit more work there. But I think that the grants person, it'll take them a few hours to get the first one done. And once they get that, they get easier. So, Cecilia. Or do you want to be the grants coordinator?
Well, I wanted to do business sponsorships, but I have some foundations that I work with that you didn't mention. So maybe I could coordinate with somebody else to do those to make sure, if they're not on your list.
So I'm going to write you down for a business sponsorships, because I think you'd be really good at that. And I'm not mentioning everything in this meeting, but we can share with you by email all of the different foundations we've written up. And when we get a person who says they'll help with the grants, then if you have any that are not on our list, then we'll ask you maybe to help with that, if that sounds okay.
Perfect.
So at this point, thank you for that.
Perfect.
At this point, let me just ask the people who are on the call, would you like to take on one of these roles? No pressure, but if you say, hey, I'd like to work on that, then we'll just write your name down on it, and then we'll schedule a meeting for next month, and we'll follow up with more details by then. So with that said, would anybody like to volunteer for any volunteer committee roles? And Natalia, I know. Okay, they can't hear you very well because you're not in front of them. So Natalia, and Natalia, if you could just chat there, because I know you can't talk. So, and if you want to think about it or whatnot, you can. You're kind of on our list, and you showed up tonight. So, volunteer coordinator.
I'd like to be part of one of these roles. I just don't know which one just yet.
Yep, no problem. Why don't you just think about it, and what we'll end up doing is I'll talk with Amy, and she'll end up taking over it, like the communication with the volunteer committee, and then I'll be hiding in the background. Okay. So I don't see anything from Natalia or Krishna. So if you guys want to think about it, whatever level you want to participate, I know Krishna has a lot of stuff going on, but I asked her to participate in this meeting since she was the event chair in 2019. So any other questions I'd love for meetings to start and end on time, and it's 6:25. Any other final questions just for our kickoff meeting? Yeah, we'll be talking more. So you and I should, Amy and I should probably sit down and like kind of give you a deeper download into everything at a time that works for you. Okay, so with that said, hey, why I'm the only man here? I got a text from a man, Brian Higgins, who said I missed the meeting. Well, we're recording it. We do have some men who said they wanted to help. Men can't be on time for anything. Now I'm bashing men. Now they're not going to want to come. So I want to thank all the ladies who rule the world for showing up, because if you want to get something done, give it to a woman. I want to thank you all on behalf of the chamber and our foundation, and especially all of the kids. So I'll end with my inspirational moment here. You know, it really matters a lot to kids. I was a poor kid growing up, and I remember the first time that I got clothes that were new. It was at JCPenney here in Salinas. And sometimes when you're poor, you get to go around and like look at the clothes, but then you have to put them back because you don't ever get to buy them. And so we did that one time, and it's kind of typical, like you do that. But then my mom took the clothes up to the counter, and I looked at her like, oh, it's not for pretend this time. It's like I get to get my own clothes instead of having hand-me-downs from my brothers or stuff from the Goodwill or whatnot. So, I mean, when you're a kid who doesn't have a lot of stuff, these things impact you. Cynthia, who was a longtime volunteer with this event, she talks about how she got to get a cute blue dress when she was a little girl and how it impacted her for her whole life. That's Cynthia Martinez, who's volunteered a lot for this event. In Modesto, the JCs in Modesto used to do this event. There was someone who was so impacted by this when he was a child that when he grew up and eventually when he passed away, he donated $100,000 to the children's shopping tour because it meant so much to him. So I just want to say, you'll hear me say that story because I kind of tell that story a lot. But for the kids that get impacted, it doesn't happen if there's not people like you willing to give some of your time and your efforts to make it happen. So again, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's here and the people who are watching this video. Thank you for showing up, and let's stay in touch. Again, I'm Paul, the CEO of the Chamber. My email is president@salinaschamber.com. The phone number at the chamber is 831-751-7725. So stay tuned for future meetings, and we'll go ahead and stop the recording now. So stop recording.